Jazz music.
See, that light is on
30s
now.
and 40s.
I'm very familiar with his music.
is that
I have a
so.
number of them on LP.
So that light is now on, and see, this is now moving.
Gypsy jazz.
Okay, all right.
Wonderful.
So now, all right, everybody, we are streaming, and there is audio.
Oh, good. We're all,
Everybody make sure your mics are on.
We're
It's-
learning.
It's 11:07.
All right, so-
The commission doesn't have a chairperson yet, so I'm going to be the interim chairperson for today. First on the agenda is a pledge of allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Merle, can we have a roll call, I guess? It's not on here, but
Mike,
here.
Barb,
Here.
Evelyn, Hope,
yes,
Justine,
Here. Gretchen.
here, and we're missing Chris,
Okay.
Dottie, and Mike Yeager is away.
Okay, we have minutes of January 25, 2022. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Is there a second?
I second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
I'd like to welcome our new commission member, Justine McGarry. You
Thank
Say
you.
anything? You want to say anything? No. Say hi.
Thank you for having me. My professional background is not in sustainability, but it is a personal passion. And I look forward to working with all of you and really listening today as I get completely caught up on everything that's been happening over the past year.
Welcome.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Very good, welcome. We, as the liaison to the planning board, we have a meeting this evening, but there are no applications for us to review.
Oh,
There are no applications.
I'm not sure, Chris is not here, but there's supposed to be, he was going to follow up on the, about the desal plant. Does anybody want to have any comments on that at all, that maybe from a month ago that we haven't talked about? I mean, I think that's a work in progress, which we're going to be on top of as we go along here.
I had a question.
Sure.
Actually, so I read through the master plan reexamination. It was talking about how to integrate alternative energy sources, and then looking at that in conjunction with the desal plant, I thought, how is this plant powered? And is there the potential for the integration of alternative energy sources at the plant?
Great question.
Keep that question.
I mean, it might be something worth looking into from a city's perspective. You know, there might be grant money available for solar panels for the plant. I'm not sure, it's outside of my area of knowledge, but it seems like
It's a
Great
logical, it's
project.
a logical question.
yeah.
And now's the time to be asking that, because if they're talking about a total redesign, they can redesign the roof in a way to accommodate that. I mean, the location of the present facility, it's wide open, you know, it's sunny. There's opportunities for solar over there. So let's, you know,
And especially since they're exploring all the, hopefully, the grant money that's out there, that with all that money that's been expended by the federal government, hopefully we can get some of that for that project. I know they're looking into it, but that's all I know.
Would Chris have more information on that then? Because he's the one that spoke to the gentleman.
I'm not sure how much information Chris has, if,
I think Mike Yeager, as our council representative, would be someone to just keep on reminding him about the Environmental Commission's, you know, interest in that, to explore that possibility.
I don't think
he-
the council has discussed it much recently, this whole, the plant. Maybe they have, but I haven't followed it, so you're right, Mike would be the one to keep us abreast on that. But he's not here, so we'll have to remind Mike to make some kind of a report on that, okay?
All right, Mike did say that when he returns to Cape May, he will listen to the live stream from today's meeting, so that'll be a help.
You're on, Mike. And Meryl, you know more about this, our budget request. What do we know about that?
Mike said that he would look into it when he gets back. But I think the budget is supposed to be voted on in March.
And that was what, for 5,000, was it?
We asked for 5,000. Last year, we had 3,000, and
Okay. Interim budgets now anyway, so we'll have to wait to see what our final budget is. And I guess we're rolling through here. So Evelyn and Hope, you want to start whatever you wanted to present today?
Sure.
Okay, let me go. I just found out, we were tracing this, hoping I couldn't find out where this stood. The last I remember was there were two versions. One had appendices and the others had lists in it, the other one. And we gave it to Lorraine to present to council and asked them to please choose one and then discuss it. What happened was they didn't, it's more than tabled. They voted it, let's not talk about it anymore, in preference to the fact that the new council was coming in. This was like December 2020. There was a new council in 21. But I don't think it ever got anywhere after that.
And we're actually not sure that that was the reason, but that
Yeah, well,
makes sense. Oh, that's what,
Trish said it was
Trish said
in
it, okay.
deference
I
to the
believe
new
you.
people coming in. But I don't think they ever.
but it did go anywhere after that.
So we would like to amend some words to make it a little less onerous. Hopefully, that will then pass. I'll let Hope give you the changes we made. And then when Mike comes back, I would like to give it to him and say, please, take this in front of council again. Maybe, it has a number, it's 404-2020.
You don't
Maybe
have,
we
you don't
can-
by chance happen to have a copy of that with you right now, do you?
I have a
Yes, we
million
would.
copies. We need to get them photocopied.
Yeah. Ours are marked up by
Can't
now.
go in here anymore, so
Okay.
we'll have to get copies
get
for you.
copies.
Actually, a better thing to do is let us fix it, send it to Merrill, and Merrill, you send it to everybody else with all the fixes, okay?
absolutely.
And then I think we would pressure Mike to please bring this up, present it to council, and maybe make a public, meeting. That's what they kept talking about. They wanted to know what the public would say about this. So we need to, and in order to do that, they have to have it in front of them and say, we're going to talk about it, and there's a public portion. So we'll see when he comes back. You want to present some of your
Yeah.
our changes?
What did I do with version 1? Because that has section 3 on it. But at any rate, thank you. When I first read it, I thought, boy, some of this language is really arbitrary, and you can just hear people saying, wait a second. And sure enough, that was the discussion in the work center. In the work session, are you going to have people come into our backyards and inspect it? Well, no. So we wanted to change the wording a little bit so that it says, let me see. I'm sorry, I have the wrong version in front of me. That's right. That in section 3, particularly where it's inspections in the old version, all places and premises in the city of Cape May shall be subject to inspection by the enforcing officer. And we thought we would change that, and you're welcome to contribute to this anyway. All places and premises in street view in the city of Cape May shall be subject to review by the enforcing officer. Such reviews shall be performed, and the old version says, by such persons or agency duly authorized, and we would like to change that to shall be performed by a member of the Environmental Commission duly authorized and appointed by the city. And then it goes on to say, such inspection, and we would change that to review, shall be made if that official has reason to believe that any section of this chapter is being violated. the reason we put in street review is, as I was watching the meeting, so, we're thinking, wait a second, this city has architectural rules, ordinances that cannot be violated, and most of them, except in the primary district, have to do with street view. In general, people are not going to wander through your property and check to see what is going on in the non-street view parts of your architecture, so that this basically is the same thing. We're looking at what can be seen, what we know can be seen and can be reviewed, if you don't want to use the word inspected. Once you get into people's backyards and private property, you have a whole other issue going on, and maybe we can deal with that. But those are the changes that we would like to be made here. Right off this is just from looking at it today and in the last couple of days. So obviously, we would welcome other suggestions. And in this version also is the list of the dirty dozen. Some of them, and Gretchen knows this better than any of us, I think, are not necessarily found here, and maybe there needs to be a note to that effect. We were looking at Tree of Heaven. Grows in Brooklyn.
No, I mean, it's here. It's not prolific around here, but.
It's on the first page.
Yeah.
Yeah, that list.
See the dirty dozen? Okay. And there were other plants that were discussed also in the work session and in other places. For example, poison ivy, which everybody knows is a bad thing, but it's not listed here in the dirty dozen. I don't know whether we want to include that or not.
It's native.
It is native, but it's invasive. And it's harmful.
I think we didn't want to put it
One
in.
of our biggest problems is porcelain berry.
Porcelain berry.
It's not on here.
Yes, it is. It's the
Oh, there
third,
it is, okay.
the fourth one. Right.
I think we discussed this in the commission 2 years ago, and we decided not to put poison ivy on there. I don't see it now, but I think I mentioned, and I can put it in, although poison ivy is a native, it's an onerous plant if you have it. It is not part of this ordinance. We will not fine you because you have it, but take it out.
People who have it should be told that they have it
They have to-
before they grab onto it and try to pull it out of their garden. And we were also talking about Phragmites, which obviously people don't plant, but it sprouts up in people's yards and is dangerously invasive, as we know, and creeps into other people's yards. So that if it can't be listed under dirty dozen, maybe some mention needs to be made that you should mow it and keep mowing it forever.
I don't know if we want to put it in the ordinance because it makes it more and more wordy.
Well, there's that.
You know, it's a good, that's the only way to get rid of frag, is to keep mowing it.
Right.
But I don't know if we want to put it in the ordinance.
Well, maybe
Because
that
we're
need,
not-
oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, we will, if it is, if it's in your front yard, we will review it and say, get it out. But it mostly grows in backyards, where you're, like, the back, where you may not even bother, and that's where it grows.
These might be included in the education portion of this,
Yeah.
which has nothing to do with the ordinance, but we could include plants like that in the education brochure.
And I keep presenting this, that I would like to present. I have a very short slideshow of invasive plants. How did they get here, and how expensive they are to get rid of. There's millions of dollars to get rid of an open space that has porcelain berry. You can pull it out by hand, and that's really almost the only way you can get it. So I would like to present it to council, and I think I've said this, and they have not invited me, so I don't know. We could also put together, as an environmental commission, now that we can have public meetings, have a public meeting on invasives.
Do you think anybody would show up?
Well, I did it in West Cape May a couple of years ago, and I didn't have a huge audience, but I had an audience.
I think there's a couple other opportunities for education. We've talked about approaching the Star and Wave about maybe like a weekly most wanted kind of thing. To point out the bad plants. We can, of course, use social media, and I'm happy to do that through the nature centers, Instagram and Facebook pages. With our proposed Cape Island Ocean Festival on June 11th, we're planning on including things such as with the Surf Rider Association, they promote what's called ocean-friendly gardens. I'm going to talk a little bit about another offshoot of that with doing a planting day on that day. We're probably going to have tables at that event by New Jersey Audubon's Gardening for Wildlife. And I can reach out to our stewardship department about talking about native plants and all of that. So we could use that event as I mentioned before, it sort of counts as the green festival for the town because everything's connected to the ocean here. So it's not hard to talk about the plants and the coastal habitats to do that. So that's an opportunity too. I don't know, I mean, sure, I don't think it's wrong to have an event and invite people to come, but you'll probably get the people that are already part of
They're already
Right.
watching out for
Yeah.
it, right?
The festival probably will bring people who don't necessarily know this.
Right.
And that's a better opportunity.
And we can look at other opportunities for other events happening in town to have a table to do that. Yeah, I think now is the time to do this. As you mentioned, getting back to Mike Yeager, asking him to present it to council. We're all seeing all the construction happening in
Yeah.
town, all the new houses. That means all new landscaping. And I'm a little on the fence about the whole street view kind of thing because there's so much that can happen then in people's backyards.
Well,
And
this is the problem that we were up against here, and the reason, and obviously the wording can be changed. I mean, that was just what we thought of as we were talking here this morning, because I was thinking of the architecture regulations, and that's the problem. Is that I'm with you on that. If in street view, and who knows what's going on in the backyard, but we can't do that. I mean, there has to be a way to manage that without people saying, although the mosquito commission does it, they knock on your door and say, I'm going through your yard and I'm looking at all the still puddles and I'm throwing them out.
You're right.
And the code enforcement officer, if there is something that's happening that seems to be a violation, and they have the right to go into the backyard too.
They do,
without
but once,
asking?
I don't see how it's any different. It's not like just because this ordinance is in place that all of a sudden there's going to be a team of nature plant cops.
no, well, that's what
that
we were
note,
concerned
can I ask a
about, some
question?
kind of gentle wording in here, yeah.
Sorry for
No,
interrupting.
no.
As I get caught up, I remember reading an article about this last year that Councilmember Sheehan specifically was opposed to it because of the enforcement
Yes.
element.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
then I have a vague recollection of something about a program like this in Delaware, and that you used as a model, kind of.
Well, that's the question I was going to ask.
How?
The Point and West Cape May, did they just recently approve ordinances for invasive plants?
I don't know.
I didn't know, I know they were working, you had said they were working.
Charlotte, do you recall whether they did?
Yes, Cape May Point has one.
Well, I think we ought to get a copy of their
But
ordinance.
Cape May Point only, their ordinance is only against bamboo.
Well, I just want to get a copy of their ordinance
Hey.
so we
Okay.
can see, because I don't know what our council's going to do.
Yeah,
And like,
actually. Well, I
how
know
does
that
Delaware enforce it?
Bamboo is
Perhaps we can,
we could ask.
yeah.
We need to know.
Okay.
You're right, and that's what alerted me when I read this, and then when we looked at the video of the work session, that was her objection and someone else's as well. And so we were trying to gentle this down so that you don't have people standing up and saying, nobody's coming into my backyard.
Right.
But you have to, we have to have a way to deal with that without, raising people's privacy hackles, as it were.
Justine, you do remember something about, they did something in Delaware? Did they,
Look at that.
I don't remember how they enforce it. I just remember it being referenced as a potential model. I mean, if we were able
Well, we
to,
can look at it
We can
again
look
and
at
see
it
that.
to present a list of municipalities that do
Stacy
it.
also, she I know, she was afraid this would be a neighbor against neighbor.
Right.
And didn't, and that's not what we want. But I have my own problems with some neighbors, and I wouldn't, if this passes, when it passes, I wouldn't then call the code enforcement officer and tell, and rat on them, but I would copy the enforcement, the ordinance, and write them a nice letter saying, I'm afraid you do have to now mow your yard. And I think that's gentle. I don't think that, I'm not going to take them to court. So I don't think that it means fighting your neighbor. I think it gives you some what did we use? Something strong to use. This is, you're growing Phragmites, and it's not legal anymore.
Merrill, can you try and get a copy of the ordinance in Cape May Point from the city? I'm sure you'll be able to find it. And Merrill, can you send it out to everybody, just as a, as a PDF, so we can
I
look
can
at it?
also
And
ask
there's
whether
also
Kate
the
West did
pamphlet.
anything.
I'm sorry.
Okay, I mean, I think when you girls, when you submit whatever you guys are going to review over there, and when you send it out to us, I'd like to have a copy of the Cape May Point ordinance, just to see
Absolutely.
see how they treated it,
Yeah.
and see how they enforced it.
Because the problem
bet they
here
don't.
is to keep it simple, but make it clear of what we're going to do and what we're not going to do, so that, to just avoid some of these objections that people will raise, either in the public session or whenever.
Charlotte,
Yes.
do you recall some of the issues that we had with the council on this last go around with this?
Yes, I do. It appeared that the council wasn't willing to introduce either ordinance that were presented by the commission, with Heather and Evelyn being there to satisfy their questions. I think simply because the advice of counsel was that they wanted to have this particular ordinance, both ordinances, one or the other, as suggested by counsel, introduced so that the public could come forward and make their comments and hold public hearings on those comments. And then council would have some sort of gauge about the public's views. And this all happened in November of 2019.
Oh.
But unfortunately, at that meeting, there was never a call for either ordinance to go forward. And so it kind of just lingers. It's, very difficult. So it was November 2020.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I do know a couple of other things. For example, Jack, in the reports that they mailed to us in the summer of 2019, has given us an article about, it's titled, "Remind Me Again Why Invasive Species Are Bad." And in particular, they say that they're bad because these species problems is about 50 years old, and it's because of nature having fewer insects and birds that eat these particular invasive species or nectar from them. That's creating more of an incline for these populations, and that's why invasive species are bad, at least in this article, which I can certainly send to the commission. There's one other thing that I think on a positive note that happens historically, and Mike is familiar with this, is that we have an ordinance from 1999, and it's 117099, and it goes forward to tell anybody that comes before the planning board for approvals that they absolutely have to have landscaping and vegetation according to Cape May Bird Observatory's New Jersey's native trees, shrubs, and vines that are beneficial to birds and butterflies. And that's provided by Pat Sutton, and the lists are there.
We do have copies of that.
That maybe is something that we could talk to, that you all could talk to council about. These lists are supposedly delivered to anybody who goes before the planning board committee and says, this is what I want to develop. But it shouldn't just stop there. It's so necessary through our community to support the birds and butterflies that this is a very positive way of looking at the plants. And furthermore, in terms of outreach, we have a garden club, and those members are from Lower Township, they're from West Cape May, they're from Cape May Point, and they do a tremendous job of educating. And so getting them on board to recognize, even with an educational program from the Environmental Commission to the Garden Club, letting them know specifically which plants are very invasive would really help. And then on the other side, letting them know about the plants that are beneficial by Pat Sutton. So I think that those are some things that we can go forward with. If an ordinance isn't passed at this point, education can go on.
I'm a member of the Garden Club, so I can do that if we all agree that that's part. I can bring it up at the next meeting.
What was that reference to that ordinance again,
It's
Charlotte?
1170,
Is
99.
1170-99, and it was signed by Mayor Elwell,
Yeah.
Gaffney Councilman, Bailey Councilman, Mahaney Councilman, and Phelan Councilman.
Okay.
I have something to say about that. So the issue is that exists, but is it, being used?
I don't think, it was my question too.
So, to resurrect that, but I also say, why does it stop there? Why does it have to be anything that goes before planning board approval? Because there's a lot that probably doesn't go before planning board approval. Individual homes, a tear down, we've seen a lot of tear downs and reconstruction, and they may just need a building permit. Part of the building permit review should be, a review of a landscape plan.
Gretchen, it might be as part of that packet, but we'll just have to follow up on that.
Yeah.
It may be there, which it's just never been, it's just been glossed over.
Well,
When we've had plans to go over, as a commission, there are landscape plans.
Well, that's different. We're talking about actually somebody goes in and just wants to do some very simple building.
Yeah, and we don't get.
Well, I know, but I'm saying the construction, there is a packet they give everybody.
Oh,
And we should,
But my,
They're supposed to give the list of acceptable plants with that permit. Now, do they? I don't know.
but again, who's checking?
Who's checking?
Who's checking
And
that?
how do
Yeah.
they know when they're building a house? How do they know how they're going to landscape it? And whether the construction people are not the landscape people, unless they say, well, we're going to put 2 Bradford pears out front. It seems to me that you're, not that this shouldn't be done, but that you're not necessarily giving it to the people who matter. The builder is not thinking about the trees. The builder is building a building. So that even if this goes to before planning and zoning, it's, A, is it
It's the-
done? I
it's
mean,
the
that was
age-
my question. And B,
It's
I
the
don't know
age-old-
what I'm planting if
It's
I'm
the
building a
age-old
house.
question, who enforces anything?
And who
Anything.
enforces it after, but assuming that it is even done. If someone comes before the planning board and says, the house is going to be, this many feet, and it's going to be so many things, and then you're going to say, well, what are you planting? I don't know.
Well, one of the ways of addressing that is to make sure that all of the landscapers that work here know.
Get copy. That's
Well,
what,
that
that
they
makes more
know
sense.
If we get this ordinance passed, they should have a copy of it, plus the list of acceptable plants. And they're pretty savvy. I mean, I've spoken to them. They're not hostile to being told, please don't plant purple loosestrife. They don't know that it's invasive, but I think they've stopped planting it. So I think they're the ones that, because they'll be called on to someone's home to come look at my house and give me a plan. So I think they're the ones that we have to educate.
I think the inclusion of a reference to 117099 would be great in the
We should put that in here.
presentation.
You're right.
Because it's establishing for the
Yep.
council that there is a precedent of oversight of species. And
I'll check that out for the next meeting, and also check out what the construction department presents to
Okay.
people. I'll check both
Yeah.
those
Oh,
items.
I think we've asked for that. over
Well, we
and over,
have,
But
but-
we don't know whether they do it.
You got to walk and crawl before you can walk and run, so every little bit helps as we move forward here.
Do you know what I would like to do? And maybe what I'll do is put it together in an email and then ask you to reply to Merrill. We have two versions. Why don't we pick a version, since council is obviously not going to?
Well, why don't you just, whatever you're going to work on, maybe we can send it out, or at the very least, at the next meeting, when Mike is here, we can kind of have a little roundtable again and figure out which direction
Okay.
to go.
But I think
I mean,
that,
Mike, we can't really do much without Mike being
no,
here.
we
No, we can't.
But I think that I want to present one version.
then we'll pick it.
Because they're not real.
I want to get a
knowledgeable,
version,
and
I want to get a version that passes.
Yeah,
Well, so
Simple
let
as
me
that.
ask then, the suggested wording that we just gave you at the beginning, is that acceptable? Do people think that that's something that we?
Put whatever you want together and send it
Okay.
out,
but
and
we
get it
wanted
to
to
them.
change.
I think it
I think it's helpful to maybe not the street view, but then we're wondering about whether we should leave that part out about street view. But I think if we don't,
They're going to question.
they're going to question, they're going to say, I don't want people in my backyard. So we can say that and maybe then let council work on it from that point.
Yeah.
I think also taking another look of what's out there, whether it's Delaware or other.
Oh,
places,
definitely.
See what they do.
Sure,
And just look
Yeah.
closely at the wording.
okay.
We did change, was it?
Can wait, before we gloss over that, can someone try and figure out where that came from?
What?
The Delaware, and can you check that out?
Within,
It's in the minutes from last year.
Okay.
There's reference to it.
I mean, try and bring it in next week.
Oh,
within some colleagues in New Jersey Audubon, whether it's the stewardship department
Right.
or our
Okay.
gardening for wildlife.
I mean, if we can bring it in for next meeting, hopefully we
the-
can start to
Right.
tie some of this up together.
And the point, the Camey Point ordinance.
Yeah, Merrill's going to try and
All
get
right.
that ordinance.
Okay.
And if you send me what you have, or what you want to send out, I'll send it with the minutes so people can get a chance to look
yes.
at
Okay.
it
Yeah. I
early
think we
on.
need to send both versions.
And if
Yeah.
Gretchen has the other stuff and sends it to me, I'll send
You
that
send that
out
too?
also.
Okay.
Okay.
I feel,
And
I'm sorry.
back to the Ocean Festival, I think
We have, I glossed over that with you, I'm sorry, we'll get back to you, Gretchen, but I want, Barbara had a question.
I have a brochure here from the Chesapeake Climate Action Network, and I feel like the Dirty Dozen is just way too big to start educating people with. If we could pare it down to even English ivy or invasive on the trees. This is an invasive vine that grows,
Yeah.
and it's addressing only the trees.
That's true. That was because I talked to Shade Tree Commission before we wrote it to see if they wanted to put it, and that was their input, because they're only interested in
So,
trees.
you
But
know, it's very simple, it's easy for people to
Yeah.
grasp onto. I know my neighbor's English ivy was coming over, like, I had it out of my yard, but it's
gonna
coming
come
over.
back.
Yeah.
It'll be back. I just
There
pulled a
is,
piece. Yeah.
there's another version which,
The-
Barbara-
So on the bottom of this, it says action that you can take. In other words, telling people, and it says
This is
to
what- yeah.
form your own, here's how it reads. It says volunteer in a local weed warrior program. Like, start your own group in your neighborhood then and you know,
that's a good idea.
go out and you have to have permission, but maybe you can work with neighbors.
We're going to scan that and get it out to everybody. too.
Barbara, there was another version where, again, we did not list the Dirty Dozen. I just said there is a brochure with the Dirty Dozen, Appendix 1.
Right.
The New Jersey Invasive Species Strike Force has, we put it
know,
in, we put it in an appendix because it's too long.
Yeah.
It's
And
too
most
long,
of
and
the
it doesn't
plants
necessarily
people won't
apply here.
We all know what English ivy is.
Right.
We know what that.
Right, but one of the things that Stacy said the first time we presented this was dogwood. Dogwood's okay. Well, the thing is, you have to, and I don't know where I wrote it, but you have to know the genus and species.
Right.
Because the dogwood that is invasive is a Japanese species,
Same
different,
with butterfly bush, everybody's.
different
"Oh,
from what we plant here.
Well, the same, I mean, we could go on and on. The same is true of wisteria.
Yeah.
Is
This was why I was wondering, when we talked about this earlier, that I was wondering about Tree of Heaven, but as it turns out, it is here. And some of these are even on the Dirty Dozen, and maybe there's a note that said, you know, seen all over Cape May, or not seen, just words to that effect. The common ones here, like English ivy, loosestrife, porcelain berry.
Let's open it up to the floor. Trish, you want to make a comment? Sure.
Okay.
Oh, wow. I could go on and on here.
Right, everybody's.
Meryl, did you get the name of that, what she was talking about?
New Jersey invasive species,
North American.
North America.
And I'll just go on record that New Jersey Audubon is also
Yeah.
starting a webinar series March 1st. It's every Tuesday night. I think it's 8 weeks. And it's on gardening for wildlife, and I'm teaching the last 2 classes on landscape design using natives. And one of the classes is on invasive species and native alternatives.
And what's the time?
Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. You do have to pre-register. If you go to njaudubon.org, you can find a link to register for the programs.
I took the class with you the first time, the trial one, and learned quite a bit.
Can we publicize that? Can we put that in the Star and Wave or on, obviously, social media, but
And honestly, one of the, so here's an idea. I'm just going to throw this out. My husband writes a column for the Star and Wave called The Other Side, and he's always looking for new stories. Where we live at the Meadows at Cape Island, it's a townhouse complex, we're tackling invasives big time. We have, I don't know, 40 Bradford pears. We're starting to take them out. We have a wooded area that's just been totally taken over by English ivy. We're actively working on that. We're spending tens of thousands of dollars to, improve the property. Maybe there's a story that people need to hear. So we could write an article about that.
Well, he could do it on his radio show as well.
Yeah.
Gretchen, Mark also does a radio.
That's what I just said.
Yeah.
He could do it on his radio show.
Ellen would be a fabulous.
Yeah, you want to come in, be a
Yeah.
guest?
Be on the radio. That's WCFA 101.5,
Friday at 1 o'clock.
Friday at 1 o'clock.
Before we leave this, Charlotte, you have anything else you want to say on this? Anything?
No, thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Anybody else have anything they want to say?
I would like to go back to Gretchen's Ocean Fair.
I was going to go back. I was going to let her have the floor again about her, their festival.
The Environmental Commission should have a table there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, hopefully, the City of Cape May Environmental Commission will be one of the sponsors. All the sponsors can have a table.
Is that the $1,000 you're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll take whatever support the commission can give. We've asked for 1,000. West Cape May gave 1,000. Don't know yet about Cape May Point. Sponsors surely can have a table, but even if we give a smaller percentage, you can be there. We want environmental organizations to be there. Positive messages, not like don't do this, don't do that, but like really a positive way of, what we talked about at our last meeting, and anyone that's interested can attend the planning meetings. I will let you know when the next one is. We've got the Surfrider Association, or Foundation, sorry. The Watershed Ambassadors will be there. We're reaching out to other groups like Clean Ocean Action, even the DeSatnick Foundation. Everyone that uses and loves the ocean and how important that is to our coastal communities. Right now it's proposed to be an event that's all on the Nature Center property. This is not Harbor Fest. Some people remember Harbor Fest, where we had thousands of people and we blocked off the street, at least for this first year, where it's a mini festival, hopefully about 500 people or so. We changed the date to June 11th instead of the first proposal, which was June 4th. And that's, it's going to have artist vendors that either make things like sea glass or make art out of marine debris, or using art as an inspiration, and then education vendors that are there with a message. And that's it, basically. Does anybody have any questions?
I have a suggestion. Years ago, and it might have been at one of the Harbor Fests, we had a table, and I borrowed from Anjek a game, but this was on water conservation, so I could ask them if they have something on invasive species. The game was a wheel, and it brought kids in. You spin it, and it gives you a topic, and then I had a book of questions.
We have one.
You have one?
Yeah,
right.
I actually have two of those kinds of roulette wheels,
And
so
I
we'll
asked,
set you up.
the question was, how can you save water at home? And this was a child, and he said, you can turn the water off when you're brushing your teeth.
Yeah.
I was impressed.
Yeah, that's
And
what-
I could ask them if they have any toys that point to invasive species, because it brings people to the table.
If someone here could reach out to Anjak.
I will,
For
'cause I know them.
representation, they
Yeah.
can be there. And
Nandini, or what's her name? Yeah, anyway, I know, it's Nina, I think.
And if you have any suggestions on other organizations that we're not thinking of, Alicia Calkins, who is our watershed ambassador, her role in the committee is to reach out to the different organizations and invite them. Part of it is they'll have a table at the event, but also we are going to show films and have speakers like every half hour in the classroom at the Nature Center where people can stop in and listen to a presentation. So we need speakers, suggestions on films that we can show. And yeah, that's it. I mean, it's the first year maybe. And I missed the last green team meeting, but want to work with the city's green team to make sure they know everything that's going on. And, you know, I think that this can fill the need of a green fair for the city, which you can get points with your sustainable Jersey application. So,
I can talk to the garden club about that also. They might want to be part of it.
They might want to be part of it.
who's the contact there? Like,
Well, the president is Debbie Yeager.
oh, it is,
Yeah.
okay. All
But-
right.
I am too. I'm the former president.
All right.
Okay.
We'll check, we'll have to follow through on what our budget puts us at, so before we can make that donation.
We're gonna.
We'll get there,
apply.
but we just need a little.
Yeah, and I mean, we're gonna do this festival whether we have
Yeah.
a budget or not.
Yeah, I get it.
And it's just, to me, that's the seed money that helps us at the Nature Center. There are some things that we would like to be able to purchase, like the yard sale, things like that, just to get started with expenses. You know, when you have a festival at the Nature Center, there's wear and tear on our facility. Toilet paper for, everybody coming to the event, and, our utility needs and all that. So, again, it's just the seed money, maybe a couple of paid advertisements. I know the radio station wants to be able to come, and we did talk about that, so I have to follow up
Oh,
at our
good.
last
Okay.
meeting. So more ideas, if you have any ideas, please send them to me. You can come to a meeting. Ideas for sponsorships or organizations you think should be there. That would help.
Okay, I think that's it. If anybody has any ideas for a topic for next month, whatever, just contact Merle and we'll try and we'll bring it up. Anybody else have any comments they want to make?
I have a comment, but not about this.
Go ahead.
Was it last year, or the year before, we put up plaques for the Environmentalist of the Year? Charlotte got one, and I think it's now in the garden by the water tower. I think we were thinking about putting it on that bench, one of the benches. So we need to think about who do we want to nominate this year, and it's up to us. Nobody else votes on it, so we can think about it and vote on it and put that person's name on the bench.
Is it on the bench now?
I don't know. It
don't
was
think
on.
so.
well,
I think we
no,
ought to, let's do a little more research. Maybe
There wa-
talk to
it's
Heather
in
and
the
see exactly
mall.
what happened.
I think the main one is in the mall, and then we were going to start putting it on the bench. I don't think we have
It's
so far.
it's not on the bench now.
Not yet.
No, that's one of the garden club projects, is
Oh,
that
is it?
the garden, not the bench.
Oh,
So
okay.
I know it's not on the bench because
Okay.
I've sat on it.
Yeah, why don't you summarize that a little bit better for us and figure out exactly what you're
What we're
talking
gonna
about
do?
here? Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
So report next time?
Yes.
Exactly what you want to do with that.
And then we'll have an update on
It's on one of
all this ordinance stuff.
All right, it's almost time to go here. Anybody else have any comments?
All right,
Merle?
so I need to send out the information that Barb gave me.
Correct?
I need to get information from you, and I need some from Gretchen, and I'll make another packet, because last month they sent a ton of stuff out.
Okay. Well, I think it's better to have it ahead of time than just giving it to us here.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, make a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn.
All set?
Second?
And if you could give me a copy of the pamphlet, the invasive species things?
I have it.
Evelyn has it, I don't.
I'll scan, do you want the physical, or can I scan it?
Scan it in.
Okay.
I will send it.
Okay, I will scan it. Yeah, you and I, we were gonna distribute.
All right, I guess we better turn this. Never mind.
We're self-publishing, which is part of the problem. No, it's cheap. Well, it is expensive. We're doing it through Google, Amazon. But in
We have, I think we talked about that and kind of didn't get answers.
I don't know, David's thinking $20. It costs the whole cost.
Yeah.